That's the two of you, or no? That's the two of you?
The other went to his brother's birthday. Narrowed down.
Huh?
Narrowed down.
All right.
Now we can learn the real secret.
Okay. I don't remember time when you were here last time. So I want to start from the bottom of page 9 gold. The last words. I'm sure you don't mind. I'm sure you won't mind. I'm sure you won't mind if you go back and we discussed the meaning of Yetzias Mitzrayim. Why Yetzias Mitzrayim is pointed to at Matan Torah rather than Bria Shemayim V'Oretz. And the principle that we discussed is the fact that Yetzias Mitzrayim is really a greater revelation, God revelation, than Bria Shemayim V'Oretz. Bria Shemayim V'Oretz is that Hashem created the world, but Hashem is concealed in the world. Yetzias Mitzrayim is that which lifted Eden out of the constraints of nature, natural constraints. They want to relate directly to Hashem. Hashem's presence became their reality. This is why that is what's mentioned by Matan Torah. Now, in the second half, we started talking about this in Yetzias Mitzrayim. There's an emphasis. You know what emphasis means? There's a nuance. It's not a universal Yetzias Mitzrayim. The whole world was taken out of nature. It's a shicha. It is exclusively fitted for the Jewish people. I said, shicha miyat Mitzrayim. Ani Abba Elokeichem asher yitziasechem. Your God. What does it mean? Why Dafki? Why did the Rebbe should take everybody out of constraints of nature? The answer is because only Yidden have the capacity to accept and to relate to this kind of a being. Because Neshamas Yisrael are of that caliber and have that level of capability that they're all of the machshavos, so they can relate to godliness in this pure way. Other nations are not capable of this, of completely being removed from the restraints of nature. This is why this was uniquely afforded to the Jewish people, not to us. That's right.
Why they wasn't able, what changed, what the Yetzias Mitzrayim changed?
Luba Machshava, but then the Neshama, this is Machshava, the Neshama came down through Seder Hishtalshemus, all the way into the goof, and it lost this. It didn't lose essentially this concept, but it lost the capability to imbue the body with it, to reveal this thing into the body. I have this thing, that's right, provided with this ability to actually connect to it while in the world. This is the union that we spoke many times. It said that by Matan Torah there was a breakthrough. The reason that Tachtoinim are able to be Maila and Oila Lamaila is because El Yonim Yod Lamato. After the Yod Lamato, there's a long process that continues on since that time of Tachtoinim Oila Lamaila. It's a whole process. It's not a one-time shot. For all the years of Golos and all the Avedas that we did, slowly we are getting there. Now we have Chassidus. Oilam Lamayla. But only Yidden, even through Avodah, are capable of Yeshua, because they have it inherently in their neshamas. All the goal is only in my life. When a Yid goes through a golus, Rahman al-Islam, the golus that we went through, and he finds it in his mind and in his heart. After all that, his connection to Hashem, that's Aliyah Lamayla. That's a huge Aliyah Lamayla. That's a huge Aliyah Lamayla. Despite everything that he had seen. Hashem said, if you keep my Torah mitzvahs, you be good boys, everything will be good. I'll protect you, I'll provide for everything, all your needs. And it's like a Geshmechem B'yitom, all these things. The Yidden that was slaughtered during the Second World War, I don't say 100%, but generally speaking, they were Shemer Torah Mitzvah. They were Shemer Torah Mitzvah. What happened with that promise? So those who survived the concentration camps, and even those who did not visit the concentration camps, who know what happened over there, but can be completely confused, right? What's going on? There's nothing there. And yet, they insisted, no, there is. We don't understand the Holocaust. We're not about to explain it or say, oh, it makes sense. God forbid. No way. But that does not create a schism between us and Hashem. You don't understand? I submit to you then a break. Huh? Schism. That's tapping in the Shama. You know, tapping means getting into the essence. There was a young man, Accra Heights, who now passed away, never, a young man. Very, very fine gentleman. He was very heavily involved in visiting the jails, prisons. And he did all kinds of activities with the prisoners. Give them, revive them, give them spirit. After the Rebbe spoke about the prisoners, he was extremely familiar with all the various prisons in the area and further out in the area, and all the prison guards and the various authorities knew him. He had access to every prison. And the rabbis, you know, every prison has a chaplain, a Jewish chaplain, generally cooperate with him. There's one prison, the rabbi was a Reform rabbi, and he said, by me, you're not getting it. I'm not letting you in. I don't remember all the details. That's all. So you know the story. I don't know all the details. The bottom line, he permitted him to, and he said, I want to send him, I think, Shalach Monas. He said, yes, but you're not coming in? Okay. So I'll send it to somebody else. But I think the Pale Dishes, when he went to his house, he comes and knocks him on his door and brings him the peklach that he brought along. So then this rabbi had no choice but to allow him to come in and distribute it. I think that was the story. That's not important. I'll give you the point what I'm making. So he finally allowed him in. Studying the prisoners, and he started giving this out, and he started singing songs with them and giving inspiration. And he said, "Who wants to put on tefillin?" And all the prisoners lined up to put on tefillin. As he's going through that, so he then goes to the rabbi and says, "How about you?" So he says, "Wow, your chutzpah is unbelievable." But he's not waiting for his response. He rolls up his sleeve and he's ready, and he put him on tefillin on him. So he put on tefillin, and all of a sudden he started saying Shema like an old crow. Not like a reformer, like an old crow. He started putting on tefillin and says, "You don't need to help me. I know how to do it. What's going on?" And he put on tefillin, and he was saying Shema, and he cried like a baby. Cried like a baby. And afterwards, he asked him to come into his office. I want to talk to him. And tells him the story. He was during the Holocaust. He was in a concentration camp. And he had a grandfather who was a big Rav, very respected, a very upright gentleman, a Rav. And the Nazis took him, I don't remember exactly what they did. They embarrassed him enormously, and they shot him in the middle of the way. He was watching all of this. I don't remember exactly what. He saw it. He was a young boy. He observed this. When he came out, he survived the concentration camp. When he came out, he decided, "I'm going to take revenge on God." He went and became a Reform rabbi. He's telling his own story. And he did everything to destroy Yiddishkeit. Any opportunity he had to marry mixed couples, that was his biggest joy. This went on for years. Then he said, "You have touched something in me, and I hope my father can forgive me." Anyway, so of course he changed and started becoming, so forth. He had a chance to put on tefillin another 2 weeks or something, then he passed away. He was an elder. You know. So my point is, there was something there gnawing at him. No matter how angry he was, he couldn't eradicate it. He couldn't eradicate it. That's a story of a Reform who hated Jews. Who knows how much trouble, how much tzores he brought on these mixed couples. The Rebbe shall help them all. When he and his part, this is his story. All right. Bottom, last words. But this we can understand. Inyan ho amunah. What is the principle of Amunah? Shemitzvahs ha'amunah hi miposuk onoichi kinoida. It's known that the mitzvah for Amunah is drawn, we learn it from the posuk onoichi avai elekecha asher tzisicha mi'eretz Mitzrayim. In other words, we don't learn it from the posuk Bereshis bara Elokim et hashamayim v'ha'aretz or any other posuk where it says Ani Hashem Elokecha Mitzrayim onoichi avai elekecha. This is the source of the mitzvah. Excuse me. And what is the emphasis of Davki on Noichi, V'hainu? And the point in that is Ki inyan ha'amuna, because the element of Emunah, a neshayach, is not possible, is not applicable. Ki yin bebchino shalamaylo mehishtal shalom. The inyan for Amunah is not applicable except to an element that is above Hishtalshus. L'mayla me Hishtalshus. Okay, here we stop, and I'm going to stop again and discuss what is meant by L'mayla me Hishtalshus. You wanna help us?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So the Sheishes is like how God comes down in a gradual process of evolution from one level to a lower level to the until the creation of this world. So that goes on the four-letter name you gave up here, like the process. The Yud represents Chachma, like the highest level. Then the Hey represents Bina, and the second the Vav represents the six Midas, right? And the second Hey represents Malchus. So it goes down like in that kind of level. So I'm saying the Amunah is higher than Sheishes, higher than the four-letter name. It's beyond anything to do with creation.
Okay, that's very good. I just want to make a point, and then the nuance of this. It's higher and lower. It's not the same thing.
It's not nothing to do with space or.
Yeah, I understand. But the point is, L'maylam Hishtalshus does not only mean that which is higher. It cannot be part of Hishtalshus. That's important. It cannot be part of Hishtalshus. Does mean higher. There are Seichel can be translated, Chochmah can be translated in Bina, Bina can be translated in Midas, Midas can ultimately be translated in action. And actually fulfill the action. Whereas that which is above Hishtalshus, like Rotzen and Noimish, they don't come through process. They just can't. There's no way to capture Rotzen and Noimish in any process. In order for me to move this cup, it has to go to the seichel into the hand. The cup will never move because I want it to move. Want is not going to happen. Seichel can make it move because Seichel can instruct the hand to move through Hishtalshus. No. The Rotzen by itself. No. Rotzen. No. Seichel perceives. Seichel perceives the elements that go into moving the cup. Rotzen doesn't have that. Rotzen knows, I want the cup to be there, or something like that. Doesn't have this whole element of there is a hand, there's a way to grab it and move it. Can relate to that. It's very dynamic. This is what I want. It is true what you're saying. I mean, it's emotional, but it's true. Like Lachoira, everything is ultimately from the Rotzen. It's not. The Rotzen is the overall element. But in order to facilitate the actual action, Rotzen is in the seichel and in the hand identical. Identical. If everything went from the Rotzen, it would be very frustrating. Because the minute I want, it should happen. It's not happening. So Lamayla Mehishtalshalos means something that cannot be perceived with Seichel. Such an element that is, so to speak, not definable by Seichel. Cannot be broken down into processes. When in Seichel, when you perceive in Seichel that this cup should be here, in that perception, there is already the element that I can make the cup here, and I know how, essentially. Then it has to be further interpreted. But there is that element. In Rotzen, there isn't that element. I don't know that there's something as a method. What I want, that's what I want. There's no methodology, there's the reality itself. So this is like a Muslim concept of the Mayan Hishtalshalos. It cannot participate in Hishtalshalos, it cannot be captured in Hishtalshalos. It encompasses everything absolutely equal. In Hishtalshalos, there cannot be equality, it has to be graduality. That's right, but not in a particular action, not in the instances. To explain this further, this is the Alter Rebbe says that if a person does Torah mitzvahs, properly we should do mitzvahs with ahava. Not everyone is able to achieve that level. So there are different levels. There's what's called hidden ahava, and it's concealed deep down in his heart and deep down in his mind. He says that this is not real ahava. That which is concealed in one's mind is not real ahava, and therefore it cannot connect to an action of mitzvahs. It's too high. It cannot connect to an action of mitzvahs. Except Machshava Tova HaKadosh Baruch Hu Mitzarfa L'Maisa. One does it with the proper intent. HaKadosh Baruch Hu considers it as if he did it with ahava. You learn this, I'm sure. So even there, even Seichel at some point cannot connect to an action. He has to go through the means. But Seichel can be instrumental to connect to means. In order that the action should be a living action, not just obedience, he has to go to means. Even though in Seichel I have it all. So the whole union of immunity is not shaykh except only beginning of Malam Yistalshus. Ki, because Habri or Yashmeyayin, Yistalshus, which was represented by Bri Yashmeyayin, HaKoil Moed, all submit to that. Afilu Chasidei Umes Ho'elam Gamkein, which is possible in Manjamach. Even the Umes Ho'elam also submit to the principle of Brio Yashmiyai. Except this is not all Umes Ho'elam. It is only Chasidei Umes Ho'elam. What does that mean? Chasidei Umes Ho'elam. It means that Umas Ha'olam are also able to understand the principle of Bri Yashmayan. Because Bria Yesh Miyayin is something which is evident, so to speak, logically to the safe. But regardless of how clear and logical it is, you can relate to it. I see a yes, and I don't see the Creator. And I can submit that this is Bria Yesh Miyayin. You can argue from now till tomorrow. It may be logical, but I can relate to it. They don't have a Munah. I mean, a Munah like by you. I'm saying they are. Let me finish it. So they can relate to it. The principle of Bria Yesh Miyayin is not only that the world has no source of its own and it had to be created, and it was created by something, by God, who is I and who is completely above the world. The principle of Bria Yesh Miyayin is more than that. As the Alter Rebbe explains in Tanya, and there is Yesh Miyesh and Yesh Miyayin. Yesh Miyesh, then the first Yesh becomes a second Yesh. And now the second Yesh can stand on its own. Doesn't need the other Yesh to support it. Yesh Miyayin, since it's Miyayin, it does not have a position on its own. It has to be constantly maintained by the eye, by this force. So if you submit to Bria Yesh Miyayin, you have to submit that your real presence is not absolutely yours, but it has to be supported. It has to be maintained by the eye. And therefore you have to be obedient. You have to keep the 7 mitzvahs. There has to be submission. For this, you have to have Hasidim. To understand the Bria Yesh Miyayin principle, the logic of it, anybody can understand. But thereafter to relate to it and say, yes, indeed, nothing exists but for the fact that it's being maintained, that is something which generally that not everybody can relate. That's what it says. Hasidim is moidim. They're also moidim.
They could have it.
Huh?
They could have it.
I'm sorry.
They could understand this.
Everybody can. All of them can understand. This is logic. Logic, everybody can understand.
You're saying even the Hasidim themselves could understand how it's constantly being.
The moidim. That's moidim.
Right.
That's why it's called moidim. Hasidim Israelim are also moidim. Moidim means they submit to it. You don't just understand it logically. Anybody can understand it logically. This is plain logic. But moidim is a different thing. Moidim means I can relate to it, and I can also actually live by its principles. This is moidim. For this you need Hasidim Israel, not just plain Israel. So those people who actually have this and relate to this principle and live by it, they are called Hasidim Israel. They have Olam Haba according to the Rambam. They have Olam Haba. They relate to this. That's why the Rebbe says, I feel a Hasidim Israel. If this is logical, why do you need Hasidim Israel? The answer is, it's logical for everyone. But to be moide in it, you need a special person. Huh? That's few Hasidim Israel. They don't have a Jewish soul. They don't have those refinements that Ayin has, and that relationship to godliness. They do not have it. But Bria Yesh Miyayin, they can relate. Hasidim Israel. That's why they call Hasidim. Aval but inyan onoiche avay lekech. The principle that is expressed in onoiche avay lekech. That avay lekech is really the union of onoiche. Avay lekech is the Seder Ishtalshelus. But then there is something which is completely above it. Not involved in creation. Anoichi. So there again, you may argue the point logically that if there is a Havaya Elokecha, there has to be something above it. Maybe. But can you relate to that or not? Can you say, I don't care what happens in the world, I want to connect directly to Hashem? Anoichi. That's challenging. Huh? That is challenging. To relate to the Anoichi, which is above Havaya Elokecha, above the creation. Which means I'm not interested in the fact that Hashem creates the world, and if I'm good, then Hashem is going to bless my world. So then you're still interested, so to speak, in the creation, in Hashem as the creator of your world. To say that you're interested in the Anoichi, that which is above, which means you want to serve Hashem directly, not merely on the basis of His creating the world, just Him, to relate to Him. This is the truth, and this is the only thing I want to know. And the world means to me a means to serve Him, not to my own purpose. Me, I am interested in Anoichi. That is not within reach, within the proximity of a non-Jew. A Yid has that capability. Every Yid has that capability. At least capability. And from time to time it surfaces. It surfaces by any Yid. Like, for example, the Yidden who survived the Holocaust. Nothing makes sense. The whole world fell apart. And reality remained the same. That's Anoichi above the Havaya Elokecha. Hu inyan hu amuna. This is so my together installations. Hu inyan hu amuna. Okay, here see the term the Ma'ala Megeder Hishtalshalos. The boundary Hishtalshalos, not the Ma'ala Hishtalshalos. The Ma'ala Megeder. Hishtalshalos cannot even touch it. It cannot come down to Hishtalshalos even if you try. It's not in that realm. It's Megeder Hishtalshalos. Hu inyan hu amuna sheyesh ben shomas Yisrael. This is the principle of Amunah that is present only in the Shomas Yisrael. Shema'amini ba'havaya, that they actually have the uniform Amunah v'hamamini ba'havaya shelamaylo mibchinas hishtalshalos, which is above the Havaya that is above from bchinas hishtalshalos. I'll explain to you these words. Ma'amini b'havaya shelamaylo mibchinas hishtalshalos. The meaning of emunah, the word emunah, means steadfast. You know what that means? To hold strong, to hold steady, to stand steadfast, stand steady, unwavering. Now, anything that goes through the process, the intellectual process, is not steadfast. Even if you're convinced, you have all the proofs and you understand it, it's not. It doesn't have its own foundation, its own presence. It's all based on arguments, so it's never steadfast. Like this table. The table is not standing on its own; it's standing on four legs. Take one leg off, it falls down. And even while the legs are holding it up, it is only because the legs are holding it up. Not that this board floats right here in the middle. This is how Seichel is. Seichel doesn't have its own presence. It's supported by all the points and arguments and all the the peripheral that goes into building the structure of self. So even while it's standing, it is also not steady. It's being constantly maintained, supported by all the elements that go into the self. Emunah is really steadfast. It's not dependent on any supporting evidence. There is no why and therefore in Emunah. Emunah is the reality itself. This is what it is. And don't ask me how I know it. Don't ask me what it means to me. I just know it. It's in the movie. It's not something else. You cannot wait. So, to be able to be mad, that's what mani means to put all your focus, 100%, unwaveringly. In Havaya, this has to be the Magnus Seder Ishtalshalos. Because the Seder Ishtalshalos is a constant change. Like we said before, Havaya creates the world, Yesh V'Yayin, but the world is unsteady on its own feet. It has to be constantly maintained. So if you are trusting in the sense that they're able to create in the creator of the world, you don't have real trust, because here he creates, he decides not to create. There's nothing compelling to create. Nothing compelling Hashem to create the world. So there's nothing steady in this, if you're talking in terms of the creation. You know, you tell yourself, I better obey him, I better follow his instructions, because or else. But that's the extent of it. But to relate Amunah, to be steady, and know that this is there all the time. This is there all the time. It never wavers. It cannot change. The world can change. The existence of the world can change. Hashem can decide, Chas v'Sholom, not to create it, and it's out. Emunah goes beyond that. It's unwavering. Where do we have a godly element that doesn't waver, that doesn't have any changes? It has to be a Malam Seder Ishtalshalos. Malam Ishtalshalos. And that is what Emunah is. This is the concept, this is the perception that even have, and this is what even trust is. Ma'amini. They put all their trust in this thing. I don't care what happens in the world. I don't trust the world. I don't even trust, so to speak, the creator of the world. You know, in a matter of speech. Because I trust Hashem himself.
That we can't explain.
That's right. But that's not part of the creation. That's before the creation.
Yeah, it has nothing has to do with, we just have no clue what that means.
That's right.
So why do we even say taiva? Like why is that even
It's the only way we can express it. Something that we cannot explain, that has no logical explanation. We say it's called a type, desire.
But that's like explaining something we can't explain.
That's right.
What's the point of that?
It's not. That's right. It's not explaining it. It's not explaining it. It's telling you.
It's telling you how it is.
It's telling you. It's giving you a muscle from your own experience. Right? Can you explain why you like ice cream?
Yeah.
It's telling you. This is like a title.
That's like related to the human thing. That's like the human.
They're only talking to the human being.
Okay.
You want the human being to have to have obedience to relate to. So you should know it's like a type. A type of mission conscious. Of course, it's not a type. Of course, we have, this. But if you want to have a human means of grasping of a reference, this is how you think.
Torah is written in the language of man.
What?
Like Torah is written in the language of man.
That's right.
So Jews have the moon in Hashem. They have trust in Hashem. So I think even Hasidim of Solomon, they didn't trust Hashem. What to do? To explain the moon, it's like a very strong belief to.
No, they don't have the element of trusting Hashem. They know this is God's word, and it makes sense to them. And it's not theirs; they don't belong to them. Somebody else created it, and they have no right to destroy it. You have to and deal with it to respect it. It's not theirs to destroy. It's not theirs to go against the form and the nature that He put into the world.
When they have so to speak, they afraid that Hashem anytime can change His mind and destroy the world.
No. That's not.
They have a doubt.
What?
So what does it mean they don't have a strong faith in the world?
Right. They relate to Hashem as the creator rather than as Hashem unto Himself. He is my boss. Okay? You work for your boss. But you work for your boss because he's your boss, not because of who he is.
So more than Hashem did boss, they cannot relate to anything.
Beyond that.
And the Jews can relate beyond this.
That's right. Exactly.
Not creator.
That's right. Exactly right. Like the Alter Rebbe, you know this story, Yomim. Alter Rebbe used to say in davening, I don't want anything. I don't want you Gan Eden, I don't want you Haba. I want you. This is different than this is called a move. So by the Alter Rebbe, this was at a revealed way when you actually experience it. Like every Eid is present also, but on a moon level. That's why he doesn't waver, no matter what the circumstances. In that respect, even are called Amativ Shoy, foolish people. A nation.
Okay, what?
Tipshoya, a foolish nation.
Okay.
A nation of fools.
Okay. We're fools. We don't use our logic. We tap into higher stuff like that. It's a good thing.
So, gentlemen, okay, Baruch Hashem. Okay, tomorrow we'll pursue no matter who is here. You two probably going to be here. Not tomorrow, Wednesday.
You basically will have this
Tomorrow is the main.
Something like that. Application.
Tomorrow is
Application.
you. Tomorrow is you, Thomas.
Yeah. Right, I'm not saying we'll probably mention like upcoming event, maybe.
Okay,
Especially
Maybe.
since last week we mentioned Kukas.
maybe.
Oh,
No, today is Bola.
Do you prepare for tomorrow for today?